The world looked different from inside it. That was the first thing the chief registered as the Pelican dropped through Westeros's atmosphere at 0600. The specific difference between the sensor picture and the direct experience. The sensors had given him data, accurate, comprehensive, Roland-verified data, population densities and defensive positions, and the thermal signatures of castles that had been built with the specific logic of people who understood that elevation was safety and stone was survival, and the particular medieval genius of a civilization that had never needed to imagine anything beyond what its geography and its enemies required. The sensor picture was correct. The direct experience was different, not better or worse than the data. Heavier, the weight of it, the specific physical weight of a world that had been doing what it was doing for 3,000 years without anyone from outside it looking down and understanding what it was doing or why, came through the Pelican's viewports in a way that the sensor display had not transmitted. Roland had described it as pre-industrial. The description was accurate. The description did not capture the specific quality of a landscape that had been shaped by human hands over millennia. The specific relationship between the castles and the geography around them. The way every settlement was positioned in relationship to everything adjacent to it, with the accumulated wisdom of a civilization that had learned, through the specific education of being attacked repeatedly, what the land required and what it would provide. They had built correctly with what they had. Reading the terrain, Roland said in his ear. Yes, the chief said. I could describe what you're looking at, Roland said. You already did, the chief said, 3 times. The sensor description was accurate, Roland said. I want to note that. It was, the chief said. It was also incomplete. Roland was quiet for a moment. How so? He said. It described what was here, the chief said. It didn't describe what it cost to build it. Roland processed this. I will add that to the record, he said. Don't add it, the chief said. Understand it. The Pelican banked north. Below them, the landscape converted from the greens and grays of the inhabited south to the specific stark quality of the north, the color draining from the world as the latitude increased, but the specific beautiful austerity of a landscape that had decided that survival was the organizing principle and had arranged itself accordingly. And then the wall. From the air it was, the chief had been briefed. Roland had given him the dimensions, 700 feet, 300 miles, the largest single man-made structure on the planet's surface. The briefing had not given him this, the specific quality of 700 feet of ice in the pre-dawn light, not reflecting it the way ordinary ice reflected light, but carrying it, the magic in the construction expressing itself as something visible, the 8,000-year intention of the builders present in every course of stone and every layer of ice. The wall knew what it had been built for. You could see it. Whoever built that, the chief said, he understood the problem. Roland was quiet for a moment. The problem of containing the Night King, he said. The problem of containing something that does not stop, the chief said. You don't build like that for something you think you can defeat. You build like that for something you know you can only contain. He paused. They were honest about what they were dealing with. They built the honest answer. Roland processed this. That is, Roland said, a significant reframe of the wall's construction history. "It's what the wall says," the chief said. "If you look at it." He looked at it. Below them, Castle Black, small, determined, the specific cluster of buildings at the base of the wall's immensity. That was everything the wall was not, and was also, in its specific stubborn insufficiency, exactly the wall's necessary complement. The wall contained. Castle Black endured. Both were required. "Landing in 4 minutes, Park said from the cockpit. "Chief, there are people on the battlements. They're watching us." "Good," the chief said. "Let them watch." The Pelican descended. The wall grew. Below it, in the yard of Castle Black, a figure in black was walking toward the landing position with the specific quality of someone who had decided that whatever was coming out of the Pelican was going to be met by him rather than by someone he sent. Ghost was with him, white against the gray of the pre-dawn yard. The chief watched through the viewport. "Jon Snow," Roland confirmed. "Biometric consistent with previous identification." "I know," the chief said. "How?" Roland said. "The dog," the chief said. "The dire wolf," Roland corrected. "The dire wolf," the chief confirmed. "It walks beside him like it chose to, not like it was trained to." He picked up his weapon. The Pelican touched down. The ramp opened. The chief walked out into the cold of Castle Black's yard, and the specific cold of the north, and the particular additional cold of something pressing from the other side of the wall that was not atmospheric but was present in every breath. Jon Snow was 20 meters away. Ghost was at his heel. The chief looked at Jon Snow. Jon Snow looked at the chief. Two people who have been told about each other, meeting the actual version. "Right," the chief said to no one very quietly. He walked forward. Lasky descended to King's Landing in a separate Pelican at 0800. Not because King's Landing was where he wanted to go. The operational center of the engagement was at the wall, and the wall was where the chief was, and everything Lasky needed to do in the next 18 hours was connected to the wall. He descended to King's Landing because the political situation required that someone from the UNSC acknowledge the political situation, and the chief was not the person for that acknowledgement. The chief was not the person for many things that Lasky had spent 3 years being the person for. This was the arrangement. It worked because both of them understood it. Roland had assembled a political briefing on the descent. The specific compressed intelligence picture of King's Landing's current governance, the Lannister control of the Iron Throne through Joffrey, the specific dysfunction of a court that had been operating for 2 years in the particular tension of a boy king and his mother, and the specific institutional gravity of a political system that was held together by the accumulated weight of tradition, rather than the active capability of the people running it. And Tyrion. Roland had flagged Tyrion separately. "The hand of the king," Roland said. "In practice, the primary functional intelligence in the city's governance. He has been managing the gap between the king's capability and the realm's requirements for 2 years, with the specific determination of someone who has decided that the alternative to managing is catastrophe." "He sounds like someone I should talk to," Lasky said. "I believe that was my implication, sir," Roland said. "Was it subtle?" Lasky said. Moderately," Roland said. "I can be more or less subtle depending on the audience. For you, I have calibrated to moderately subtle. And for the chief? Lasky said. Zero subtlety, Roland said. He finds subtlety inefficient. He's not wrong, Lasky said. He rarely is about operational matters, Roland said. Political matters are a different distribution. The Pelican set down in the yard outside the Red Keep at a position Roland had identified as maximally visible without being immediately threatening. A calculation that had required balancing the specific political optics of a UNSC Pelican landing in the capital of a medieval kingdom against the operational reality that being seen was preferable to being heard about, and that being visible in a non-threatening way communicated the specific message that an alien warship needed to communicate in the first 30 seconds of contact with a new civilization. We chose to be seen. We could have been invisible. This is a choice. The yard had cleared of most people by the time they landed. The specific evacuation of a space when something unprecedented enters it. The particular human response of creating distance from the unfamiliar before deciding whether the unfamiliar is dangerous. One person had not evacuated. He was standing in the yard's center with a cup of wine and the expression of someone who had decided that unprecedented things were most productively encountered directly rather than from a distance. He was short. He looked at the Pelican with the focused attention of the most intelligent thing in the yard, encountering a puzzle he found interesting. Lasky came down the ramp. They looked at each other. Captain Lasky, the man said, I am Tyrion Lannister. I am the hand of the king, which means I am functionally the person responsible for managing whatever situation you represent. He paused. I want to say immediately that I am genuinely delighted to meet you, that I have approximately 300 questions, and that I am going to ask the most important one first. Go ahead, Lasky said. Does your ship have wine? Tyrion said. Lasky looked at him, at the cup in his hand, at the expression of someone for whom this was genuinely the most important question available. Roland, Lasky said. Yes, sir, Roland said through his comm. The Infinity's stores include approximately 12,000 liters of various fermented and distilled beverages. The wine inventory specifically. Does it include anything a sophisticated palate would find adequate? Tyrion said, directly at Lasky's comm device, which he had correctly identified as the source of Roland's voice, with the specific speed of someone who filed information about communication sources automatically. I can synthesize a recommendation based on your regional preferences, if you describe them, Roland said. Though I want to note that my knowledge of Westerosi wine traditions is 3 days old and based on atmospheric intercept data, so the recommendation will be directional rather than precise. Tyrion looked at the comm device. Your ship has an AI, he said. Yes, Lasky said. It talks, Tyrion said. Oh, constantly, Lasky said. I prefer fluently, Roland said. Tyrion looked at the comm device for 3 full seconds. Then he looked at Lasky. I think, he said slowly, that this is going to be a productive relationship. I was going to say the same thing, Lasky said. Roland, Tyrion said to the comm device. Lord Tyrion, Roland said. Dornish Reds, Tyrion said. If you have anything approximating a Dornish Red, I will consider the UNSC a trustworthy ally in this situation. I have a Rioja from Lasky's personal stores that is structurally similar to what I understand Dornish Reds to be, Roland said. I can have it sent on the next Pelican run if the captain approves. Lasky looked at Roland's comm device, at Tyrion, at the specific situation of being on an alien medieval world and having his first diplomatic conversation be about wine inventory. Approved, he said. Excellent, Roland said. Now, shall we discuss the army of the dead? By all means, Tyrion said. He gestured towards the Red Keep. Come inside, Captain. I have maps. The maps were in the Tower of the Hand, not the official maps. The official maps were decorative, the specific cartographic products of a kingdom that had been mapping itself for centuries and had produced in those centuries maps of considerable beauty and moderate accuracy. The maps in Tyrion's working chamber were functional, covered in notes with the grease pencil marks of someone who had been tracking the Night King's advance for months and had developed, through the tracking, a detailed picture of a situation that the official maps did not acknowledge existed. Lasky looked at them. You've been watching the army, he said. For 6 months, Tyrion said, through Night's Watch Ravens and Northern Lord reports and the specific intelligence network of a man named Varys, who I will introduce you to at the appropriate moment because Varys requires contextual introduction. He paused. What I have been watching tells me the army is real, it is large, it is moving south, and it cannot be stopped by anything that is currently available in this kingdom. That assessment was accurate as of 3 days ago, Lasky said. And now, Tyrion said, now there is a UNSC Infinity in your sky, Lasky said. Tyrion looked at him, at the specific quality of a man who had been carrying a problem for 6 months that nobody would acknowledge was real, and had just been told that the problem had acquired a potential solution. The specific quality of relief that was not comfortable. The relief of something enormous that had been held alone for a long time, being offered the possibility of being held by more than one person. What can you do? Tyrion said. Not with the political architecture of a negotiation, directly. The flat ask of someone who needed an honest answer, Lasky told him. Not everything, not the full technical specifications, not the inventory of weapon systems and their specific destructive capacities, the operational picture. What the Infinity's forces could contribute to the northern engagement. The aerial capability, the Spartan 4s, the specific qualities of UNSC firepower against biological and animated targets. Tyrion listened with complete attention. The specific quality of someone who was filing every piece of information in the correct position relative to every other piece, building the picture in real time, asking questions that refined the picture rather than expanding it unnecessarily. His questions were excellent. The Spartan 4s, Tyrion said, 12 of them against 30,000 animated dead. Not against the army, Lasky said. Against the walkers, the White Walkers who lead the army. They're the command element. Remove the command element. And the army loses direction, Tyrion said. We know. We have been trying to get someone to listen to this for months. Who wouldn't listen? Lasky said. Tyrion looked at him. At the maps. Everyone with the power to do something about it, he said. For the specific reason that acknowledging the problem required acknowledging that the problem exceeded what they were willing to address. Political constraint, Lasky said. Political constraint, Tyrion confirmed. The specific mechanism by which people who understand a problem fail to address it because addressing it costs more than they are willing to pay. We don't have that constraint, Lasky said. No, Tyrion said. You don't. He looked at the maps. Which is either the most valuable thing about you or the most dangerous, depending on whether your objectives align with the realm's interests. They do, Lasky said. Everyone says that, Tyrion said. Roland, Lasky said. Yes, sir, Roland said. Tell Lord Tyrion what the UNSC wants from Westeros, Lasky said. Nothing, Roland said. Specifically, no territory, no political influence, no resources, no agreements that would bind the UNSC to Westerosi political arrangements. The Infinity arrived here by accident. We want to address the immediate threat and determine how to go home. Tyrion looked at the comm device. Nothing, he said. Nothing, Roland confirmed. That is... Tyrion started. Accurate, Roland said. Also unprecedented, Tyrion said. I have been told that, Roland said, by Lord Tyrion specifically twice in 3 minutes. And you maintain it is accurate? Yes. How do I verify that? Tyrion said. You observe our behavior, Roland said. We are here. We have not attempted to negotiate political advantage from our arrival. We have not threatened. We have not made demands. We have asked to help with a problem that kills people, regardless of their political allegiance, and we have asked nothing in return. A pause. The verification is the behavior over time. We don't have time, which is unfortunate, but the behavior so far is consistent with the stated position. Tyrion was quiet. He looked at the maps, at the Night King's marked position, at the timeline, at the specific situation of a man who had been trying to get the realm to take an existential threat seriously for 6 months and had just been told that 17,000 people in a ship in the sky were ready to address it without requiring anything. What do you need from me? He said. Information, Lasky said. Everything you have on the Night King, the army, the terrain, the political situation, specifically regarding Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen. The 2 people with the actual military capability to contribute meaningfully to the engagement, Tyrion said. Yes, Lasky said. Both of them are, Tyrion started. The relationship between them is complicated. Complicated how? Lasky said. Tyrion looked at him. She wants the throne, Tyrion said. He doesn't. But he has a claim to it that exceeds hers by blood. Neither of them knows how to navigate that without the navigation becoming the primary thing instead of the Night King. Someone needs to make the Night King the primary thing, Lasky said. Yes, Tyrion said. Who does that? Lasky said. Tyrion looked at him. At the comm device. At the pelican visible through the tower window, at the ship in the sky above it. I believe, Tyrion said slowly, nay, that is what you are here for. We can help with the Night King, Lasky said. The political situation? Let me handle the political situation, Tyrion said. I have been handling political situations since before you were born. He paused. No offense. None taken, Lasky said. What I need from you, Tyrion said, is the specific capability to address the thing that no political situation can address. The army, the Night King. He paused. Can you give me that? Yes, Lasky said. With certainty, Tyrion said. Lasky thought about certainty. About what certainty meant in operational situations. about the chief's specific relationship with certainty. The flat operational confidence that was not the same as certainty, but was the thing that produced the outcomes that certainty tried to predict. "No," Lasky said. "Not with certainty. With the best available capability applied with complete commitment." Tyrion looked at him. "That," Tyrion said, "is the most honest answer I have received from anyone with military capability in 3 years." "We try to be accurate," Lasky said. "Most people with military capability try to be reassuring," Tyrion said. "There is a significant difference." "Yes," Lasky said, "there is." Tyrion looked at the maps. "Right then," he said, "let me tell you everything I know." He began. Roland recorded it. The wine arrived on the next Pelican. Tyrion assessed it, nodded once. "The UNSC," he said, "has adequate wine and excellent information management." He paused. "I have worked with considerably worse." "Thank you," Lasky said. "It was not a compliment," Tyrion said. "It was an assessment." "I know," Lasky said. "That's why I thanked you." Tyrion looked at him, the specific look of someone encountering someone else who understood the distinction. "Captain Lasky," he said, "Lord Tyrion." "I believe we are going to work well together," Tyrion said. "I believe you're right," Lasky said. They went back to the maps. Ghost decided first. This was how Jon would describe it afterward. Not to Roland, who had sensor data and biometric readings and the specific technical apparatus of an intelligence that recorded everything. To Tormund, who had asked what the big soldier was like and had received the answer. Ghost decided first. Tormund had understood immediately. Ghost understood people at a level that preceded the specific social architecture of trust building. The introductions, the shared meals, the accumulation of time and incident that human beings required to convert strangers into allies. Ghost did not require the accumulation. He assessed. He decided. He communicated the decision through the specific vocabulary of a dire wolf that had been doing this for 5 years and had never once been wrong. The chief came down the Pelican ramp and Ghost watched him come. Not with the hackles-up focus of threat assessment, the specific alert quality that preceded the growl that preceded the attack. With the different quality, the quality of something that was filing information rather than preparing a response. Watching the armor, the weapon, the specific way the chief moved. Not human large, but something else large. The particular quality of significant mass controlled with complete precision. Ghost watched. The chief reached the yard's center, stopped, looked at Jon, looked at Ghost, said nothing. Ghost stood, walked forward, 3 steps, sniffed the air around the armor, made the sound, not the growl, not the greeting vocalization he used with people he knew. Something in between, the specific sound of a decision being finalized. Sat down, directly beside the chief's left leg. Jon looked at his direwolf, at the position, at the specific communication of it. "He doesn't do that," Jon said. "What does he do instead?" the chief said. "Waits," Jon said. "He watches from a distance and he decides, and then he approaches if he decides positively. He doesn't." He paused. "He has never sat down immediately." "He didn't sit down immediately," the chief said. "He thought about it for 30 seconds. "That is immediately," Jon said, "for Ghost." The chief looked at the direwolf beside him. Ghost looked forward, toward the wall, toward north. The specific posture of something that had made its assessment. and was now operating in the mode that came after assessment, present, attentive, ready for whatever the situation produced. "Smart animal," the chief said. "He's particular about people," John said. "The ones worth being particular about are," the chief said. John looked at him, at the armor, at the visor that gave him no face, at the weapon on the chief's back, the MA-5 assault rifle, the specific geometry of something designed to project force at range, carried with the ease of something that had been carried for so long it had become part of the person carrying it. "John Snow," John said. "Lord Commander, Night's Watch." "I know who you are," the chief said. "Roland briefed me." "What did he tell you?" John said. "Everything in the atmospheric intercepts for the last 72 hours that was relevant to your role in the current tactical situation," the chief said. "Plus the specific accounts you gave to your garrison about the army of the dead. Plus your personal history as reconstructed from available data." He paused. "Roland is thorough." "What did you think?" John said. The chief was quiet for a moment. "I thought," the chief said, "that you have been carrying a problem that was too large for the resources available to you for longer than anyone should be asked to carry it, and that you have been carrying it anyway." John looked at him, at the flat delivery of it, at the absence of anything in it except the observation. "Yes," John said. "I've done that," the chief said. They looked at each other. The specific mutual recognition of two people who had been in the same situation, not the same situation in its particulars, the same situation in its essential, and who understood that the essential was the thing that mattered. "Come inside," John said. "See, I'll tell you everything I know." "Yes," the chief said. Ghost stood, walked between them toward the great hall, the specific position of something that had decided on a configuration and was maintaining it. The great hall briefing lasted 4 hours, not because the information required 4 hours. The chief had been briefed extensively by Roland and had built a comprehensive tactical picture before the Pelican landed. It lasted 4 hours because the specific intelligence that Jon Snow carried was not the kind that could be efficiently transferred through sensor data and atmospheric intercepts. It was the kind that required the person who carried it to be present while they transferred it. The kind that included what the cold felt like when the Night King was close, what the specific quality of the walker's movement communicated about their tactical doctrine, the way the whites responded to different stimuli, fire, sound, the presence of living people, the specific targeting behavior of things that were operating on direction rather than instinct, the way the Night King had looked at Jon across the battlefield, at the fist of the first men. The chief asked about this specifically. "He looked at you," the chief said. "Not the rangers around you. You specifically." "Yes," Jon said. "How did you know it was specific?" the chief said. "Because he raised the others first," Jon said. "The rangers who had fallen around me. He raised them while he was looking at me. He raised them without looking at them." He paused. Like a secondary task," the chief said. "The raising was automatic. The looking at you was the primary function." "Yes," Jon said. "Exactly like that." The chief was quiet. He looked at the map, at the Night King's marked position, at the specific geometry of the situation. "He knows you died," the chief said. Jon looked at him. "He was not present when I died," Jon said. He felt it, the chief said. Through the network, through the animation connection. Everything dead or recently dead in his operational area is part of his awareness. You died and you were part of his awareness, and then you came back and you were not. He paused. That's not something his model accounts for. His model, John said. His operational framework, the chief said. The specific set of assumptions that 8,000 years of doing one thing has produced in him. In his model, things die and become part of the army. You died and didn't become part of the army. That's a variable he hasn't seen before. John absorbed this. You're saying I'm a problem he's trying to solve, John said. I'm saying, the chief said, that you represent something he doesn't have a category for, and things without a category require attention. Is that useful? John said. Useful, the chief said, means leverage. If his attention is on you, it's not fully on the army. If it's not fully on the army's coherence degrades at the edges. He paused. Yes, it's useful. John looked at the table, at the map, at the marks Tyrion had been making for 6 months, tracking the army's advance. Dragonglass, he said. Valyrian steel, the weapons that work. Tell me why they work, the chief said. Because, John stopped. We don't know why, exactly. We know they do. The heat signature, Roland said from the relay device on the table. He had been present throughout, processing the exchange with the specific continuous attention of an AI that treated operational briefings as primary intelligence events. Both dragonglass and Valyrian steel carry specific thermal properties distinct from conventional weapons. Dragonglass stores geological heat from the volcanic processes that created it. Valyrian steel was forged with dragonfire. The heat is embedded in the alloy's structure. The chief looked at the relay device. Heat disrupts the animation, the chief said. Hypothesis, Roland said. The Night King's magic, the animation mechanism, operates at the specific temperature of his nature. You introduce a concentrated heat source at the point of contact, and the mechanism fails locally. Like a circuit breaker, the chief said. That analogy is... Roland paused. Actually, very accurate, yes. John was looking at the relay device. You worked that out, he said slowly, from the description of the weapons. The chief asked why they work, Roland said. I found an answer consistent with the available data. John started. About 40 seconds, Roland said. I was also processing several other things simultaneously, so the dedicated calculation time was closer to 15. John stared at the relay device. Roland, the chief said. Sir. Relevant only, the chief said. The 40-second analysis was relevant, Roland said. It explains the mechanism, and the mechanism determines the tactical approach. Yes, the chief said. It was relevant. Then I don't understand the instruction, Roland said. It wasn't an instruction, the chief said. It was an observation. Roland was quiet for a moment. I will observe it, Roland said. John looked at the chief, at the specific exchange, at the relationship it represented. 3 years of exactly this, the specific ongoing negotiation between a Spartan and his AI about what was relevant and what was not, conducted with the flat economy of 2 intelligences that had been in continuous contact for long enough to have developed the shorthand of long familiarity. He's always like that? John said. Yes, the chief said. And you're always like that with him, John said. Yes, the chief said. "It works," John said, not a question. "It works," the chief confirmed. John looked at the relay device, at the specific quality of an AI that had opinions and expressed them and was also clearly essential. He thought about Ghost, about the dire wolf's assessment, about the things that were worth being particular about. "Chief," he said. "Yes." "The Night King," John said. "When we fight him, and we will have to fight him, whatever else we do, the fight is coming." "Yes," the chief said. "Have you fought things like him before?" John said. "Not similar, like him. The specific, the scale of him, the age of him, the specific quality of something that has been one thing for 8,000 years. The chief was quiet. He thought about the flood, about the grave mind, about the specific intelligence of something that had been accumulating for a very long time and had become, through the accumulation, something that operated at a scale that individual capability could not match, about what had been required, about what it had cost. "Yes," the chief said. "What did you do?" John said. "Understood it first," the chief said. "You can't fight something you don't understand. Understanding is the first phase. Fighting is the second." "And if you don't have time to understand completely," John said. "You understand enough," the chief said. "Enough to find the specific point where the thing you're fighting is most vulnerable. Everything that has been doing one thing for a long time has a specific vulnerability, the place where the one thing has produced a blind spot." "What is the Night King's blind spot?" John said. The chief looked at the map, at the Night King's position, at the army, at the wall. No, at the specific situation of something 8,000 years old, encountering something it had never encountered in 8,000 years. "Us," the chief said. John looked at him. "We are the Night King's blind spot," the chief said. "He has been doing this for 8,000 years against opponents who fight the way Westerosi fighters fight. He has a model for that. The model is comprehensive. He has seen every variation of human warfare available on this world." He paused. "He has not seen UNSC warfare. He has not seen Spartan augmentation. He has not seen aerial fire support from craft that move faster than anything in his operational history." He paused. "And he has not seen you," John said. "Me," the chief confirmed. "Specifically, the specific quality of something that has been fighting extinction-level threats for 30 years and has not been extinguished." John looked at him. "You've never stopped," John said. "No," the chief said. "That's the thing he can't model," John said slowly. "Something that doesn't stop. He has been the thing that doesn't stop for 8,000 years, the chief said. He has never had to fight it." John was quiet. He looked at the map, at the wall, at the army, at the 18 hours, at the chief who was sitting across the table from him with the specific quality of someone who had just described a tactical advantage with the same flat economy he used to describe everything, without performance, without the inflection of someone who found the advantage impressive, simply describing what was true. "You've fought things like this before," John said. "Not exactly like this," the chief said. "But like this," John said. The chief looked at him. "Close enough," the chief said. Ghost, from his position in the corner, made the sound of something that had been listening and had arrived at an opinion about what it heard. John looked at his direwolf. "He agrees," John said. "I know," the chief said. "How do you know?" John said. "Because it's the same sound he made when he decided to sit down beside me in the yard," the chief said. "The completion sound." John stared at him. "You learned his vocabulary," John said, "in 40 minutes. "I pay attention to things that are worth paying attention to," the chief said. John looked at Ghost, at the chief, at the specific quality of the exchange, the flat delivery of something that was, underneath the flatness, a significant compliment directed at both Ghost and at John for the relationship the compliment revealed. "Right," John said. He looked at the map. "Then let's talk about the wall," he said, "and the 18 hours, and what we do with them." "Yes," the chief said. They talked about the wall for 3 more hours. Roland recorded everything. Ghost stayed in the corner, and outside, on the battlements, the Night's Watch garrison looked at the northern horizon, where the army was moving, and looked at the Pelican in the yard, and looked at the sky where the Infinity was, and tried, with the specific effort of people who had decided that trying was the only available mode, to understand what the last 18 hours had produced, and what the next 18 were going to require. Ed Tollett, leaning on the battlements beside a brother whose name he had learned 3 days ago, said, "The big soldier in the armor. You think he can actually fight?" The brother looked at the Pelican, at the chief's silhouette visible through the great hall window. Ghost sat down beside him, the brother said. Ed was quiet. "Right," he said. He went back to watching north. Cersei Lannister had spent 30 years learning how men worked. Not men in the abstract, men specifically individually, the particular architecture of want and fear and pride that each one carried and that each one believed was invisible, and that Cersei had learned to read with the specific accuracy of someone who had spent 30 years in a position where reading it correctly was the difference between surviving and not surviving. She had read Joffrey's volatility and managed it. She had read Robert's appetites and navigated them. She had read Littlefinger's ambition and used it. She had read Ned Stark's honor and destroyed him with it. She had read every man who had entered her orbit with the flat professional assessment of someone for whom reading was not a skill but a necessity. Man, she had been wrong rarely enough that the wrongness stood out when it occurred, rather than blending into the average. She prepared for the chief the way she prepared for every significant meeting. She gathered intelligence. Roland had been broadcasting over the city for 3 days, and Keyburn's information network, the specific intelligence apparatus that Cersei had built around the one man in King's Landing who asked no questions she didn't want answered, had collected everything audible. She understood. The Infinity was large and armed and populated by 17,000 people who were not from this world. The chief was their primary combat asset. He had capabilities that exceeded any single fighter her world had produced. She prepared her approach. Not the direct approach. The direct approach was for people without better options. The specific layered approach she used for significant assets. Establish the meeting on her terms, in her space, with the architecture of authority she had spent 30 years building. Open with acknowledgement of capability rather than attempt to minimize it. Men whose capability was acknowledged were more receptive than men whose capability was challenged. Follow the acknowledgement with the offer, framed as partnership rather than employment. Gold first, then access, then the specific thing that every powerful man eventually wanted regardless of what he said he wanted: legitimacy. She had the crown. The crown conferred legitimacy. She would offer it. She was certain this would work. She was wrong. The meeting happened in the throne room, or not the Iron Throne room. The Iron Throne was no longer available, which was an administrative difficulty Cersei was managing through the specific political architecture of pretending it was temporarily under renovation, while she determined what the correct response was to a UNSC soldier having removed it from the premises. But a formal reception room adjacent to the throne room, designed for exactly this kind of meeting. High ceilings, the specific visual language of authority in every surface, the deliberate staging of a space that communicated, you are in the presence of power the moment you entered it. Cersei was seated. The specific choice of being seated when a guest entered communicated, I did not stand for your arrival. You are here at my pleasure. The chief entered. But Cersei read him in the first 4 seconds, the way she read everything. The armor communicated military. The weapon on his back communicated operational rather than ceremonial. The way he entered, without looking at the staging, without registering the specific visual language of authority in the room's surfaces, without any of the tells that people gave when they were processing the architecture of a power display and deciding how to respond to it, communicated something that took Cersei a longer moment than usual to categorize. He was not processing the power display, not because he was unaware of it, because it was irrelevant to him. She filed this, adjusted her approach in real time. The adjustment skipped the acknowledgement of capability, which would not land with someone who had no interest in whether she acknowledged his capability. Moved directly to the offer. Thank you for coming, she said. Yes, the chief said. He stopped in the center of the room, did not approach the chair that had been positioned for him, the specific chair she had placed at the exact angle and distance that positioned a guest as receiving her attention rather than meeting her as an equal. He stopped before the chair, did not sit. Looked at her. Cersei read this, adjusted again. Your arrival has been significant, she said, for this city and this kingdom. The capability you represent is... I know what I represent, the chief said. Cersei paused. She had been interrupted before. The specific quality of this interruption was different from the ones she had experienced. The not aggression, the interruption of someone who wanted to redirect the conversation toward themselves. Not impatience, the interruption of someone who found the preamble tedious. Something flatter. The specific interruption of someone who had assessed that the sentence being interrupted was not going to add anything to his operational picture and had therefore concluded it. She filed this. Then you understand, she said, why House Lannister would be interested in a formal arrangement. Yes, the chief said. The arrangement I am proposing... Gold, the chief said. Lands, political alliance. The specific resources of the most powerful house in Westeros offered in exchange for the UNSC's military capability being directed to Lannister interests. Cersei was very still. You anticipated the offer, she said. De Roland briefed me on Lannister political methodology, the chief said. The approach is consistent with the pattern. "And your response?" Cersei said. Her voice was exactly as it always was, controlled, precise, giving nothing away. Underneath the control, the specific recalibration of someone whose approach had been anticipated and was now operating without the element of surprise she had planned to use. "No," the chief said. "You haven't heard the terms." "The terms are not the issue," the chief said. "The terms can be generous. The issue is the arrangement itself." "What is the issue with the arrangement?" Cersei said. "The arrangement assumes the UNSC's military capability is available to be directed," the chief said. "It isn't. We are not a mercenary force. We are not available for hire by any political house for any consideration." Cersei looked at him, at the specific quality of the refusal, not negotiating, not positioning for better terms, not performing reluctance to drive the offer higher. Complete. Finished. The refusal of someone who had not found the terms insufficient, but had found the category of offer irrelevant. She had one more approach available. "The Night King," she said. "The army in the north. I have resources." "The army in the north will reach this city," the chief said, "in approximately 72 hours at current movement rate. When it does, your gold, your lands, your political alliances, and the specific resources of House Lannister will not be relevant to the outcome." "I have—" she started. "You have one dragon," the chief said. She stopped. "The Targaryen queen has 3, the chief said. "Correct your intelligence." The room was very quiet. Cersei looked at the chief, at the visor, at the armor, at the specific quality of someone who had said 3 sentences that had cut through 30 years of political architecture, with the flat efficiency of something that had not been sharpened for political contexts, and was therefore sharper in them than anything designed for them. She had nothing left in the approach, not because she had exhausted her options, because the options had all been designed for an audience that processed power the way Westerosi power was processed, through the specific calculus of gold and title and legitimacy, and the particular human need to be seen as significant. The chief did not process power that way. She could see it now. Not arrogance, the specific absence of the mechanism she normally exploited, the mechanism that converted capability into want and want into leverage. The chief had the capability. He did not appear to have converted it into want. Without want, leverage had nothing to attach to. She filed this. It was the most significant intelligence she had gathered in 3 years. "You will not deal with House Lannister," she said, confirming. "Not on these terms," the chief said. "What terms would you deal on?" she said. "Terms that address the army in the north," the chief said. "The resources of House Lannister committed to the northern engagement. Grain stores for the free folk coming south. The castle infrastructure along the King's Road, available for the movement of forces." He paused. "Those are the terms." Cersei was quiet. You are asking me to commit Lannister resources to the Night King engagement," she said, "without political consideration." "I am telling you," the chief said, "what the situation requires. Whether you provide it voluntarily or whether the situation provides it for you is your choice." "And if I choose neither?" "Then the army reaches this city," the chief said, "and everything inside it becomes the Night King's." He paused. "Including House Lannister," he said. She looked at him. "For a long time." with the specific quality of someone who had never encountered a negotiation conducted entirely without the architecture of negotiation, and was processing whether the absence of the architecture was a sophisticated move or a genuine one. She arrived at genuine. She had seen sophisticated moves conducted in the manner of genuine ones. This was different. The difference was the absence of anything behind the delivery, except the delivery. No performance of simplicity concealing complexity. Simply the situation, the consequences, the choice. She would think about it. She filed this separately, in the place where the important analyses lived. Study the chief's approach. The specific mechanism of someone who had removed the architecture of negotiation from a negotiation and had produced, in the removal, something more effective than the architecture. She needed to understand how that worked. "The meeting is concluded," she said. "Yes," the chief said. He turned, walked out. Tyrion was in the corridor. He had not been invited to the meeting. He had come anyway, with the specific reasoning that corridors adjacent to significant meetings were the optimal position for someone whose value was knowing what had happened in significant meetings immediately after they happened. He looked at the chief. At the chief's departing direction, he had not heard the meeting through the door. The door was thick, and Cersei's rooms were designed for exactly this kind of acoustic privacy. What he had heard was, the meeting was brief, which told him either it had gone very well or very badly, and the chief's specific departing quality told him it had not gone very well in the Cersei sense, but had gone exactly as the chief had intended. He fell into step beside the chief. The chief looked at him. "You were waiting," the chief said. "I was conveniently positioned," Tyrion said. "Yes," the chief said. How long?" "Since the meeting began," Tyrion said. 20 minutes, the chief said. "I had wine," Tyrion said. "Your ships, actually. Lasky was generous with the Rioja." He paused. "What did she offer?" "Gold, lands, political alliance," the chief said. "The standard package," Tyrion said. "And?" "No," the chief said. "You said no to the standard package," Tyrion said. "Yes." "How did she receive the no?" Tyrion said. "She recalibrated," the chief said. 3 times. Each recalibration was faster than the previous one. "She's good," Tyrion said. "The recalibrating is what she's best at." "She's very good," the chief said. The recalibrating didn't help because the approaches were all designed for the same mechanism. "Which mechanism?" Tyrion said. "The mechanism of converting capability into want and want into leverage," the chief said. Tyrion looked at him. "You don't have wants she can address," Tyrion said slowly. "No," the chief said. "And therefore no leverage," Tyrion said. "No," the chief said. Tyrion was quiet for a moment. They walked. "I have been in King's Landing for 3 years," Tyrion said. "In 3 years I have watched my sister manipulate, outmaneuver, and destroy virtually every significant political actor she has engaged with." He paused. "I have been wanting someone to say no to the standard package for approximately 2.5 of those years." "You could have said it," the chief said. "I have said versions of it," Tyrion said. "She does not receive versions from me the same way. I am her brother. The context contaminates the message." He paused. From you? From someone with no context, no history, no relationship, no leverage point available. The no is different." It's the same, no, the chief said. The same number from a different source is a different number, Tyrion said. This is the first thing I learned about political communication, and it has not stopped being true. The chief looked at him, at the specific quality of Tyrion Lannister, delivering political analysis the way the chief delivered tactical analysis, efficiently, accurately, without performance. You should be at the planning sessions, the chief said. I have been trying to be at the planning sessions, Tyrion said. I was not invited. You're invited, the chief said. By whom? Tyrion said. By me, the chief said. Tyrion looked at him. You have the authority to invite me to UNSC planning sessions, Tyrion said. No, the chief said. I have the authority to tell you the time and location, and to tell you that your presence would be useful. That is, Tyrion started, that is a very fine distinction. Yes, the chief said. Do you want to be there or not? Desperately, Tyrion said. 0600, Castle Black, Great Hall. I will be there, Tyrion said. Bring the maps, the chief said. Which maps? Tyrion said. The ones in the Tower of the Hand with the grease pencil marks, the chief said. Roland described them. They're the accurate ones. Tyrion stared at him. Roland described my working maps, Tyrion said. Roland describes everything, the chief said. In detail, Tyrion said. In significant detail, the chief said. He found them impressive. Tyrion was quiet. Then he said, to the comm device on the chief's armor, Roland. Lord Tyrion, Roland said. You found my maps impressive, Tyrion said. The analytical methodology they represent, yes, Roland said. 6 months of Night King movement data tracked manually on physical maps using grease pencil notations with a color-coded system indicating confidence levels for each data point. A pause. In the absence of electronic data systems, it is the most rigorous intelligence methodology I have observed in this theater. Tyrion looked at the comm device. High praise from an AI, he said. I don't give low praise, Roland said. I give accurate assessments. The maps warranted the assessment. Tyrion looked at the chief. 0600, he said. 0600, the chief confirmed. He walked away, toward the Pelican, toward north, toward the wall, toward the 18 hours. Tyrion watched him go. Then he looked at the corridor wall, at the throne room door, at the specific weight of what had just happened. A man who had walked into Cersei Lannister's best approach and had walked out the other side of it without leaving anything behind that she could use. He thought about what the chief had said, about the mechanism, about capability and want and leverage. He thought about the specific extraordinary quality of someone who had removed themselves from that mechanism entirely. He had spent 20 years trying to do that. He had not managed it. He went to get his maps. Drogon saw the Infinity first. This was not surprising. Drogon had been seeing things first since he was old enough to have opinions about what deserved his attention, and the Infinity had been in the sky above Westeros for 3 days before Daenerys directed him toward it. He had been circling it at a distance she had not instructed him to maintain, in the specific holding pattern of something that had identified a significant object in its territory and was conducting its own assessment without waiting for authorization. Daenerys had watched him circle, had watched the way he circled, not the aggressive, tight spiraling of a predator closing on prey, not the defensive, wide banking of something keeping distance from a threat. Something in between. The specific exploratory pattern of a creature that had encountered something it did not have a category for and was gathering information before deciding on the category. She had given him time. She had learned over 3 years of Drogon that the time she gave him before intervening in his assessments was almost always rewarded. He was not infallible. He had been wrong about people, wrong about situations, wrong in the specific ways that a creature of significant intelligence and limited context was occasionally wrong. But his wrongness was informative wrongness. It told her something about the gap between what Drogon understood and what was true. When his circling pattern shifted, when the exploratory banking became the slower, lower, more deliberate approach of something that had made a preliminary decision, she had called him back to Dragonstone. He had come, reluctantly, with the specific quality of something that had decided it wanted to investigate further and was postponing the investigation rather than abandoning it. She had spent 2 days watching the Infinity from Dragonstone's cliffs, thinking, not about whether to engage. That had been clear since the first moment. The Infinity had appeared in her sky carrying 17,000 people and weapons, capable of reducing Dragonstone to rubble from altitude without the ship moving from its position. The question was never whether to engage. The question was how. The how required the 2 days. Not to build an approach. She had approaches. She had spent years developing approaches for every category of significant encounter her world had produced. The 2 days were for something else, for placing the Infinity in the correct category, for understanding what she was dealing with before she went to deal with it, what she had arrived at the end of the 2 days. The Infinity was not a threat. Not because it lacked the capability. It had the capability was obvious. But capability and threat were different things, and she had learned the difference through the specific education of 3 years of building something from nothing, through Astapor and Yunkai and Meereen, through every situation where something capable had not been a threat, and every situation where something less capable had been. The Infinity was not a threat because it had not acted as one. 3 days in her sky, no demands, no posturing, no demonstration of capability as intimidation. The broadcast, the voice from the sky, had been an introduction. We are here. We mean no harm. We want to talk about the thing in the north. People who intended harm did not introduce themselves first. She had gone to Missandei with this. The people on the ship, she had said. What do you think they are? Missandei had thought for a long time. They are people who came somewhere they did not intend to come, Missandei had said. And they are people who saw a problem when they arrived and decided to address the problem rather than avoid it. She had paused. In my experience, people who address problems they are not required to address are people who believe addressing problems is its own justification. Is that good? Daenerys had said. It is the best possible quality, Missandei had said, in anyone. Daenerys had thought about this, had thought about the army of the dead, about the thing in the north that had been advancing for 8,000 years and had been advancing through 3 days of the Infinity's presence in her sky. without the Infinity having any obligation to address it. About the voice from the sky saying, "We have capabilities that may be relevant." About Drogon's circling pattern. About the category she had arrived at after 2 days. Not a threat, something else. She had called Drogon. Drogon approached the Infinity from below at 1400 on the 3rd day. Not from above. The approach from above was the approach of something asserting dominance, coming down on a target from the superior position. Drogon came from below and to the side, the specific approach angle of something conducting a genuine investigation rather than establishing a hierarchy. He circled the Infinity's lower hull at a distance of approximately 200 meters, then 100, then 50. The Infinity did not respond. No weapons deployed, no defensive maneuvers, no communication directed at Drogon specifically. The ship held its position with the complete stillness of something that had decided not to threaten and was communicating that decision through the absence of any response that could be interpreted as threat. Drogon circled at 50 meters for 8 minutes. Then he landed on the observation deck that had been opened for him. The chief watched from the deck above, not because he had been directed there. He had been in the armory bay when Roland flagged the approach. We had left the armory bay without explaining why, had taken the internal stairs to the observation deck's upper level, with the specific economy of movement of someone who had identified something worth watching and was going to watch it. Roland was in his ear. Drogon's thermal output at current distance is, "I can feel it from here," the chief said. "The thermal management systems are compensating adequately," Roland said. "I know," the chief said. "That's not what I meant." Roland was quiet for a moment. "You mean you can feel the heat as a physical presence, independent of the armor's management?" Roland said. "Yes," the chief said. "That is..." Roland paused. "That is a significant heat output." "Yes," the chief said. He watched Drogon, at the specific reality of him, not the sensor picture, the actual animal. The golden eyes that were tracking everything simultaneously. The specific intelligence in them that was not human intelligence and was also not the absence of intelligence, but something at an angle to both. The scales that had a quality that the sensor data had not captured. Not the mechanical quality of armor plating, but the organic quality of something that had grown into its protection. The size of him. The specific physical scale of something that could end the operational capacity of Castle Black's garrison in approximately 30 seconds at maximum effort. "Weapon?" Roland said in his ear. "Yes," the chief said. "Also," Roland started. "Also," the chief said, "something that assessed this ship for 8 minutes before landing. Something that made a decision." "The decision being," Roland said, "that we were worth landing on," the chief said. "That we weren't a threat to him." "You find that significant," Roland said. "He's been assessing everything in his territory for 3 years," the chief said. "He's good at it, if he decided we weren't a threat." "Then his assessment is correct," Roland said. "Yes, we are not a threat to him." "His assessment is also correct that we are not a threat," the chief said. "The significant part is that he can tell the difference." Roland processed this. "You respect him," Roland said. "I respect accurate assessment," the chief said, "regardless of the source." On the deck below, Drogon looked up. at the level above his landing position, at the chief. The golden eyes found him with the specific directness of something that had known someone was there and had been deciding when to acknowledge the knowing. They looked at each other, the chief and the dragon, across the specific distance between them. "He sees me," the chief said. "Yes," Roland said. "His visual acuity at that range is... He's deciding something," the chief said. "How do you know?" Roland said. "The same way I knew Ghost was deciding something," the chief said. "The quality of the stillness." Roland was quiet. Drogon made a sound. Not the roar of threat or the hiss of aggression, something lower, more complex. The specific vocalization of something that had completed an assessment and was communicating the completion. "What did he say?" Roland said. "I don't speak dragon," the chief said. "Neither do I," Roland said. "But I can analyze the acoustic pattern and..." "Roland," the chief said. "Sir." "He said we're not a threat," the chief said. "That's enough." Drogon looked at the chief for one more moment. Then he looked away, toward the sky, toward Dragonstone, where Daenerys was watching from the cliff. She came aboard 40 minutes later. Not on Drogon. He returned to Dragonstone immediately after his assessment, the specific economy of something that had done what it came to do and had no interest in remaining longer than necessary. She came on a small boat to the Infinity's lower bay, rowed by two unsullied who said nothing and communicated nothing except competence. Lasky met her at the bay. He had prepared for this meeting the way he prepared for significant meetings, by clearing his mind of everything except the essential. What was essential? She had 3 dragons, an army, and a legitimate claim to a throne that was going to be irrelevant if the Night King reached it. She was also, based on Roland's assessment, the most genuinely motivated political actor in this theater. Motivated not by personal advantage, but by the specific desire to change the thing that produced the disadvantage in the first place, which made her, paradoxically, both the most complicated person to deal with and the most straightforward. She came up the boarding ramp in clothing that was traveling functional rather than ceremonially queenly. The specific choice of someone who had understood that the first meeting required the person rather than the performance. She looked at Lasky. She looked at the ship around her. She did not look at it the way people looked at things that overwhelmed them. She looked at it the way she looked at everything, with the specific, comprehensive attention of someone who was building a picture. "Queen Daenerys," Lasky said. "Captain Thomas Lasky, welcome aboard the UNSC Infinity." "Captain Lasky," she said, "your ship is larger than I expected." "Everyone says that," Lasky said. "Drogon was not concerned," she said. "Your dragon has good judgment," Lasky said. She looked at him, at the specific quality of a man who had just complimented her dragon with the flat, matter-of-fact delivery of someone who meant it, rather than someone who was deploying a compliment strategically. "He does," she said. "He decided you were not a threat." "We're not," Lasky said. "Why not?" she said. "Because we didn't come here to threaten anyone," Lasky said. "We came here by accident and we found a situation that required addressing, and we are addressing it." "What do you want in return?" she said. "To go home," Lasky said. "Eventually, when the slip-space physics cooperate." She looked at him. "That is," she started. "The truth," Lasky said. "It sounds like the truth," she said. That is not the same thing. No, Lasky said. It isn't. The verification is the behavior over time. We don't have time, which is a problem, but the behavior so far. Your behavior so far is, you arrived, you made contact with Jon Snow at the wall. You apparently told Cersei Lannister no to something she offered, and you sent a voice from the sky to my cliff. She paused. 3 contacts. All of them focused on the Night King rather than the political situation. Yes, Lasky said. That is consistent with what you say you want, she said. Yes, Lasky said. She was quiet. She looked at the ship around her, at the specific technology of it, the walls, the lights, the specific quality of materials that had no analog in any civilization she had encountered. Your ship, she said. How does it fight? Show her, Lasky said to Roland. Roland brought up the combat operations display in the bay's secondary screen. The specific compressed picture of the Infinity's combat capability translated into visual form. The pelicans, the broadswords, the weapon systems, the Spartan foes. Daenerys looked at it. She looked at it the way she looked at everything, comprehensively. She asked 3 questions. The first, the flying machines. How fast? Roland gave her the speed in terms she could calibrate against. How much faster than a dragon, which was faster than everything else she had as a reference point. She was quiet for a moment. Faster than Drogon, she said. Yes, Roland said, though Drogon's sustained output and maneuverability over long engagement distances is significantly greater than the Pelicans. Different capabilities for different roles. She filed this. The second, the soldiers in the armor. What can they do? Roland gave her the Spartan 4 specifications in terms she could calibrate against. How much stronger than the strongest soldier she had encountered? How much faster? How much more durable? She was quiet again. And the chief, she said. The one at the wall. He is different from the others. He is the original, Roland said. The program that produced the Spartan fees was built from what he is. He has been doing this for 30 years. 30 years, she said. Yes, Roland said. How old is he? She said. 46, Roland said. She looked at the display, at the Spartan 4 specifications, at what 30 years of the program that produced them had produced as its original. I want to meet him, she said. He's at the wall, Lasky said. Then we go to the wall, she said. The third question she asked as they walked towards the Pelican Bay. She asked it not to Lasky, but to the ship's air around her, to the comm devices she had identified as Roland's presence. Roland, she said. Your Grace, Roland said. The Night King, she said. You have been analyzing him since you arrived. Yes, Roland said. What do you think he wants? She said. Roland was quiet, not the processing pause, the considering pause, the specific silence of an AI being asked a question he had been thinking about and was choosing how to answer. I think, Roland said carefully, that want is not the correct category for the Night King. Then what is the correct category, she said. Function, Roland said. I think the Night King is executing a function he was given 8,000 years ago. Not wanting, doing. The distinction matters because want can be addressed. Want has objects, specific things that, if provided, satisfy the want. Function does not have objects. Function has completion. She walked. She was thinking. He was made to do something, she said. Yes, Roland said. And he has been doing it, she said. For 8,000 years, Roland said. Can it be stopped, she said. The function or the doing, Roland said. Both, she said. The function. Roland paused. I have a hypothesis. It is not complete. I need more information before I present it. When will you have the information? She said. When we reach the wall, Roland said. There is someone there who can provide the specific piece I am missing. Jon Snow, she said. Yes, Roland said. She was quiet. They reached the Pelican Bay. She looked at the pelicans, the specific fleet of them, 41 dropships in their bays, the functional geometry of things that had been built to carry people and weapons into difficult places and to carry them back out again. Your machines, she said. They carry people into danger and bring them home. That's what they're for, Lasky said. That is what Drogon is for, she said. What I am for. She paused. We understand each other. She looked at the Pelican, at Lasky, at the ship around her, at the specific reality of the most significant thing she had encountered in 3 years of building toward a specific destination. A thing that was not a rival, not a threat, not an obstacle, not an opportunity in the political sense. A thing that was simply present, capable, committed to the same essential objective. Captain Lasky, she said, Your Grace. What do you need from me? She said. Your dragons in the aerial engagement, Lasky said. Your commitment to the northern fight before the political fight. He paused. And your trust that we will not use the time we are in your sky to do anything except what we have said we are here to do. She looked at him, at the flat delivery of it, at the specific quality of someone who was not framing, not positioning, not deploying the request in the architecture that requests were usually deployed in. Just asking. And in return, she said, we address the Night King with everything we have, Lasky said. And when we go home, we go home. No territory, no agreements, no political footprint. She was quiet. You are asking me to trust you based on 3 days of behavior, she said. Yes, Lasky said. That is a short trust-building window, she said. Yes, Lasky said. It is. Why should I trust you? She said. Lasky thought about the right answer. He had been thinking about it since Roland told him she was coming. He arrived at the same place he always arrived when he thought long enough about the right answer. The place where the honest answer and the useful answer were the same answer. Because, Lasky said, Drogon spent 8 minutes deciding whether to land on this ship, and he landed. She looked at him. The specific quality of that answer, not a political argument, not a demonstration of capability, not an appeal to strategic interest, an appeal to her dragon's judgment, to the thing she trusted most. She was quiet for a long time. Yes, she said, not the full yes of everything, the beginning, yes, the yes that made the rest possible. Pelican is ready, Roland said through the bay's speaker. She looked at the Pelican, at the machine that carried people into danger and brought them back. Then let's go, she said.